Welcome, sleepy soul. I'll be your storyteller tonight, guiding you gently toward deep, peaceful rest. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime tales. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is, and if there's a story you'd like next, I'd love to hear it. I live in a different city on a higher floor, in a building with sealed windows and double locks on every door. People think that makes me feel safe. It doesn't, because once you've watched something stare at you through your own window, not breaking in, not shouting, not even moving, just watching you like it has all the time in the world, you stop believing glass means anything. This happened last summer. Not the cute movie kind of summer. It was the kind that sticks to your skin, where the heat crawls into the walls and refuses to leave. My old apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, in a tired-looking building with peeling paint and a landlord who always said, "I'll get to it." I moved in right after a breakup. 5 years together. Then suddenly I was sleeping alone on a sagging mattress with boxes I didn't have the energy to unpack. During the day, I told everyone I was finding myself. At night, I was just finding new ways to feel lonely. The heat made it worse. We didn't have proper AC. Just a rattling unit in the living room that dripped and hummed like it was dying. My bedroom was a sauna. I'd leave the window open at night, blinds half closed, hoping for the slightest breath of air. The city outside never fully slept. Distant sirens, a dog barking, someone's TV leaking through thin walls, but it felt better than silence. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I needed the air. I told myself nothing bad could happen on the 2nd floor. I should have listened to that feeling that said otherwise. The first thing I noticed before that night was the smell. It started faintly. Once or twice I woke up and the room smelled wrong. Not like my cheap lavender candle or my shampoo on the pillow. It smelled like damp dirt, like someone had been digging in wet soil and then stood in my room until that scent soaked into everything. I got up one night, turned on the light, checked the corners, pulled clothes from the floor, sniffed the laundry hamper like an idiot. Nothing. Just that weird earthy smell hanging in the air, clinging to the window. I told myself it was the rain. The courtyard downstairs got muddy when it stormed. Maybe it was drifting up. Maybe I was overtired. I was always overtired back then. I was working full-time at a call center, doing overtime any chance I could, handling angry customers who screamed at me over things I didn't control. I'd come home with my ears buzzing and this heavy ache behind my eyes. My head never felt quiet. That's important, because when your brain is already noisy, you trust it less when it tries to warn you. The night it happened, the heat was worse than usual. The air in my bedroom felt thick, like I was breathing through a wet towel. The ceiling fan just pushed the warmth around. Sweat glued my shirt to my back. The sheet under me felt damp from how much I'd tossed and turned. I remember the glow of my phone screen being the only light. It was past midnight. I was lying on my side, scrolling through nothing, social media, old messages I shouldn't reread, blogs about how to heal after heartbreak that I never finished. My thumb moved, but my brain wasn't really there. The window was open, blinds tilted so I could get air but not see out clearly. The street lamp from the alley leaked in, painting thin pale lines across the wall. Every so often I'd hear a car pass, a muffled bass line from somebody's music, the far-off shout of someone laughing too hard. Normal city sounds. Normal night. I kept telling myself that. And then, under the low hum of the fan and the distant noises, I heard something else. Breathing. At first I thought it was mine, echoing in my own head. That weird thing your ears do when you're half asleep. But this was different. It was slow, wet, a little uneven, like each inhale dragged through something thick. Pause. Too close. I muted my phone and held my breath. Actually held it, counting in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. The breathing kept going. Steady. Patient. It sounded like it was coming from just above me, not from the hallway, not from the apartment below. From the direction of the window. Every hair on my arms lifted. Sweat went cold on my skin. My fingers dug into the blanket without me deciding to move them. I told myself it was a neighbor. Someone smoking on their balcony. Someone on the phone. Someone normal. But it didn't sound normal. It sounded moist. Intimate. Like I could feel each exhale on the back of my neck, even though I was nowhere near the glass. I turned my head slowly. Not the dramatic movie whip, just this careful, quiet tilt like I was afraid to disturb something. My eyes tracked the slats of the blinds, the soft light coming through. There was a shape behind them, just the hint of darker against dark, like someone was standing inches from the window, blocking a portion of the street lamp glow. The breathing grew louder. I could hear a faint whistling at the top of each inhale, like air moving through damaged lungs. My heart started pounding so hard it made my vision pulse. I was suddenly aware of how exposed I was. Lying on the mattress, blanket halfway down, window wide open. No lock on a screen. No barrier that really mattered. I whispered, "Hello?" Like an idiot. My voice sounded thin and dry, like it didn't belong to me. The breathing stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. My ears strained, stretching that moment into something long and awful. I told myself I was imagining it, that there was no one there, that if I just went back to scrolling, it would pass. I turned my eyes fully toward the window, and that's when I saw it. Not pressed to the glass, not framed by the blinds, just hanging there, floating inches from the screen. A face. The blinds cut across it in pale lines, but I could see enough. Skin that looked wrong. Damp and tight, like it had swollen and then been left to dry. Dark patches under where the eyes should have been. The eyes themselves were the worst. Too wide, too reflective, catching the tiny light from my phone like animal eyes in the dark. It was angled down toward me, just slightly, the way a person might look at a child sleeping. No expression, no blinking, no curiosity, just this flat, endless stare. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. Everything in me seized up. The fan kept circling, the city kept murmuring outside. But right there, in that strip of space between me and the night, time felt stuck. We just looked at each other, or I looked at it, and it looked through me. My mouth went dry. My tongue felt like sand. I tried to swallow, and my throat clicked so loud in the quiet I was sure it heard. My breathing turned shallow, panicky, and that face, it didn't react. Not even a twitch. A drop of water slid down from its hairline, if that's what it was, and traced a glistening path across its cheek. I don't know why that made it worse. Maybe because it made it more real. It wasn't a mask. It wasn't a reflection. Things don't drip in reflections. It leaned in just a fraction. The screen should have bowed or creaked, but it didn't. The face didn't touch it. It hovered there, like the air itself was holding it in place. Then it whispered. The sound came through the screen and the gap around the frame at the same time, like it was inside and outside the room. The voice was low and gurgling, words dragged through thick mud, consonants blurred. I couldn't understand what it said. Not fully, but there was a rhythm, a repetition, like it had been saying the same thing for a very long time, over and over, to anyone who would listen. My brain latched onto one thing, the shape of my own name buried in that mess of sound. Luna. Or maybe that's what I hear now when I replay it. I don't know anymore. That broke whatever paralysis I was in. I grabbed the lamp chain and yanked. Light exploded through the room, harsh and yellow, chasing shadows into corners. I blinked, my eyes burning, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to break out. The window was empty. The blinds hung still. The night beyond was just a dull wash of streetlight and brick. No face, no shadow, no breathing. But the screen was different. I got up on shaking legs, the floor cool under my bare feet, and walked toward it because apparently I didn't value my own life. My fingers trembled as I reached out, stopped just short of touching. The screen had been cut. Not a scratch, not a snag, a deliberate slice, a vertical line about a foot long, the edges curling slightly outward like something had lifted it from the outside and reached through. The smell hit me then, stronger than ever. Damp earth, like freshly turned soil after rain. Underneath it, a sour, metallic note, like old blood and rust. It wrapped around me in the warm room, crowding out every other scent. I gagged and stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the dresser. I called the police, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. They came, 2 officers, tired eyes, polite concern. They checked the window, the alley below, the fire escape. They shined their flashlights into every corner while I stood there hugging myself, trying not to sound as crazy as I felt. "Looks like someone cut the screen," one of them said. "Probably a prowler. Stalker, maybe. You live alone." The word stalker should have made it easier. It made it worse, because stalkers are human. Stalkers make sense. Stalkers don't float. "That second floor's easy to reach from the fire escape," the other said. "Could have been watching you. You should keep this closed and locked. We'll file a report." I wanted to tell them the face didn't line up with where a person would be standing, that it didn't move like a person, that it didn't feel like a person. Instead I nodded, numb, and let them talk about motion lights and better locks and call us if anything else happens. Nothing else ever happened in a way they'd care about. I moved out 2 months later. My friends thought it was about the breakup. I let them think that. It was easier than explaining the way I stopped sleeping, or how I froze anytime I saw my reflection near glass after dark. I still hear that breathing sometimes. Not every night, just when it's too quiet. When the world goes still around 3 a.m. and the building settles and the fridge hums and the wind brushes against the windows in slow, sticky strokes. I'll be lying there, staring at the ceiling, and I'll realize I'm holding my breath, listening, waiting, and under everything I'll hear it again. In pause. Wet, slow, patient. I keep my windows closed now, even in summer. I bought blackout curtains so I don't have to see the faint suggestion of anything on the other side of the glass. My new place doesn't smell like damp earth, most of the time, but sometimes when the air gets just a little too heavy, when the room feels a little too crowded, I'll catch it. That dirt and metal scent, seeping in from nowhere, settling behind my headboard, pooling beneath the window. And I know if I pulled the curtain back fast enough, if I dared to look out with the lights off, there'd be something staring back. Not pressing against the glass. Not breaking in. Just floating there. Waiting. That's why I'm telling this. Not because I want sympathy. Not because I need someone to believe me. I don't even blame you if you don't. I'm saying it out loud because I wish someone had warned me. If you ever wake up in the middle of the night and hear breathing that isn't yours, and you catch even the faintest smell of damp earth in your room, do not look at the window, because once you see it, it knows you saw it, and it doesn't forget. My name is Ryan. I'm 34 now, and I don't run in the woods anymore. I run in circles around a crowded track on a treadmill at a gym that smells like rubber and disinfectant. Anywhere but there. Anywhere but where this happened. Back then, though, the woods behind my neighborhood were my whole world. I worked a desk job, 10 hours a day in front of a screen, answering emails, fixing little crises that didn't matter a week later. My marriage was not good. We weren't screaming yet, but we were quiet in that heavy, loaded way. I felt trapped in my own life, so I ran. Running was the only time my head didn't feel like a crowded room. I'd wake up before the sun, lace up my shoes while the house was still dark, and slip out the back gate to hit the trail while everyone else was asleep. No cars, no phones, just dirt, trees, my heartbeat in my ears. I told myself it was therapy. I told myself it was safe. I told myself I knew those woods. I had no idea how wrong I was. This was in late October, the kind of morning where the air feels like it's holding its breath. When I stepped outside, the cold hit me first. Wet, sticky, clinging to my lungs. Fog lay across the neighborhood like a low ceiling. The streetlights were just glowing blobs in it, making everything look softer and wrong at the same time. I remember thinking, this is probably a bad idea. The trail fence was just a darker smear behind our yard, the trees beyond it swallowed by gray. But the stress from the night before was still sitting in my chest. Stupid argument, tight voices, my wife turning over in bed so her back was to me. So I did what I always did. I ran away from it. Literally. The gate creaked when I opened it. I stepped off the manicured lawn onto wet leaves, mud sucking faintly at my shoes. The smell changed instantly. From shampoo and laundry detergent to damp earth, rotting leaves, and something older. The woods always smelled a little like that, but the fog made it stronger, like it was trapped against the ground. I started at a slow jog, breath puffing out in pale bursts that disappeared almost immediately into the gray. The trail behind my neighborhood isn't fancy. Just a packed dirt path that cuts through the trees, widening in some places, narrowing in others. I knew every bend, every root that tried to catch your toe. Or I thought I did. The fog swallowed sound. My footsteps were muted, soft thuds instead of sharp impacts. The usual bird calls were absent. No dogs barking from the houses nearby. No distant traffic. Just the rhythm of my breathing and the dull slap of my shoes. For the first 15 minutes, it was almost peaceful. My thoughts fell into that familiar pattern: work, money, the half-finished conversation waiting for me at home. I focused on the burn in my legs and the cold air scraping my throat. Then I heard it. A branch snapping. Sharp. Off to my right, a little behind me. I slowed without meaning to, my body reacting before my brain did. It wasn't the sound itself. It's the woods. Things break. But the rhythm of it. Snap. Pause. Snap. A few seconds apart, matching the cadence of my own strides. I told myself it was a deer, or a stray dog, something moving alongside me, spooked by my presence. I didn't want to be the paranoid guy scared of his own shadow, so I forced my pace back up, shoulders tight, pretending I wasn't listening. Snap. Closer this time. The kind of crack that comes from weight shifting, not a random fall. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Goosebumps crawled down my arms despite the heat starting to build under my shirt. I kept my eyes forward, focused on the faint suggestion of the trail ahead as it curved through the fog. "Hello," I called out, immediately hating how shaky my voice sounded. It got swallowed up, deadened by the mist. Someone there? Silence. Too much of it. I slowed to a walk. The fog thinned just enough for the next stretch of trail to appear, dim and ghostly. Dark trunks rose up on either side, branches dripping. It all looked unfamiliar in that light, like some other version of the woods had been dropped over mine. "What are you doing, man?" I muttered to myself. It's just an animal. If I had listened to that feeling, the cold, tight knot in my gut that was whispering go home, none of this would have happened. I kept going. The sound started again after maybe 30 seconds. Not behind me this time. To my left, parallel, matching my steps. The snap of branches, the soft crush of undergrowth. Someone or something moving just out of sight. I stopped completely. The sound stopped too. The air felt heavier, thick in my lungs. I could hear my own heartbeat now, a low thudding behind my ears. The fog around me shifted slightly, swirling like it was being stirred by something I couldn't see. "Hey!" I tried again, louder this time. "If somebody's out there, it's not funny." Nothing. Then, ahead of me, the fog seemed to pull back for a moment. Just a few yards. Enough to reveal a small clearing. Just a wider patch of trail where the trees broke a little. It was like watching a curtain lift. He was standing there, dead center. A man. He was facing me, maybe 20-25 feet away. Old clothes, the kind you'd find in a donation bin. Faded brown pants, a long-sleeved shirt that looked like it might have once been white, but was now stained and dark around the cuffs. Both were muddy, not splattered, soaked up from the bottom, like he'd walked through deep, wet dirt for a long time. He was barefoot. That detail hit me hard for some reason. The ground was cold. I could feel it through my shoes. Wet leaves, small stones, broken twigs. His feet were planted there, pale and dirty, toes sinking slightly into the mud. And he was smiling. Not a big grin. Just this thin, closed-mouth smile that didn't touch his eyes. The kind of smile you might give someone you recognize but don't like. Right before you say something cruel. I stopped breathing for a second. My whole body went still. Morning," I said. Because that's what you do when you've been taught your whole life to be polite, even when you're terrified. My voice sounded too loud in the muffled air. He didn't answer, didn't move. His eyes were wrong. They were open wide, unblinking, fixed directly on me. There was no curiosity, no surprise, no fatigue. Just this focus. Like he'd been standing there for a long time, waiting for something specific. Waiting for me. My instinct screamed at me to turn around. To go home. To get back to my neighborhood. My broken marriage, my boring desk job. Anything but this. I ignored it. I told myself it was nothing. A homeless guy. Someone who took a shortcut through the woods. Maybe he was high. Maybe he needed help. Hey, you okay? I took a cautious step forward, raising my hands a little to show I wasn't a threat. You lost or something? He kept smiling. The fog drifted between us in lazy strands, moving around him like he was a tree or a rock, like he belonged there. The smell of damp earth intensified, filling my nose and mouth until I could almost taste it. There was something else under it too, mildew, old wood, that cold metallic tang you get walking into a basement where water's been sitting. My skin prickled. The hairs on my arms were standing up now. I decided to go around him. Just walk past, keep my eyes down, get back on the loop and cut my run short. I could feel his stare on me as I started forward, every step heavy. As I drew closer, I noticed more details. Mud caked up to his calves. His nails too long, dark with dirt. His shirt was buttoned wrong. One side slightly higher than the other, collar twisted. Like someone else had dressed him. Or like he hadn't done this in a very long time. I passed him with maybe 6 feet between us. The cold hit me like stepping into a freezer. 1 second the air was just damp. The next it cut through my thin shirt and sank straight into my bones. My breath came out in a sudden white rush. The smell of soil and rot was so strong I almost gagged. He turned his head slowly as I went by, tracking me. I could feel his gaze on the back of my neck, hot and heavy, even though everything else was freezing. His breathing was the first sound I heard from him. Low, shaky, like each inhale fought through water. Came in right behind my ear somehow, closer than he actually was, like the sound was leaning over my shoulder. I sped up. My runner's brain kicked in, just get some distance, pick up the pace, push through. My feet hit the ground faster now, squelching in the soft mud. I looked back once. He wasn't behind me. He was in front of me. 1 second, the trail was empty. The next, the fog thinned ahead and he was standing there again. Same distance, same posture, same awful smile. My stomach dropped. The world tilted. I stopped so fast I almost fell forward. My legs trembled under me, not from exertion but from pure adrenaline. There was no way he'd moved that fast without me hearing it. No brush of leaves, no crashing through undergrowth. Nothing. I stared at him, chest heaving, heart pounding so hard it hurt. He tilted his head to the side, just a fraction. The smile widened, cracking a little at the corners like the skin there was too dry. His eyes never left mine. Then he said my name. Ryan. It came out wet and broken, like someone forcing air through old pipes. The sound didn't fit the shape of his mouth. It felt wrong in the air, like it had been dragged up from underground. My whole body went cold. How he knew my name, I still don't know. Maybe I dropped something with it on it. Maybe he'd watched me from the tree line on other runs. Maybe, God, I don't know. I just know hearing it in his voice felt like someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed. I did the only thing my animal brain could think to do. I ran. I turned off the trail, crashing blindly through undergrowth, branches whipping my arms and face. The fog turned everything into shadows and shapes that jumped toward me then vanished. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. My breath tore out of my throat in ragged gasps. Behind me, I heard it. Snap, snap, snap. Branches breaking. Footsteps somehow both heavy and silent. Not sprinting, not struggling, just keeping pace. Matching my panic with this steady, horrible patience. I didn't look back. Couldn't. The idea of seeing him closer, or right behind me, or not behind me at all, somewhere else, was worse than anything my imagination could conjure. The woods closed in around me. The fog seemed thicker here, wrapping around my ankles, my knees, clinging to my skin. I couldn't see the trail anymore. I couldn't see anything but gray and dark vertical lines that might be trees or might be something else. A root caught my foot. I went down hard. The impact knocked the air out of me. My palms hit cold mud and wet leaves, the shock buzzing up my arms. The taste of dirt slid into my mouth. My knee screamed white-hot, a sharp tearing pain that made my vision black out for a second. I lay there, face pressed against the ground, heart hammering, and realized I couldn't hear the branches anymore. The woods had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, no wind, just the faint ringing in my ears and the wet sound of my own breathing. I rolled onto my back, mud sticking to my shirt, and stared up at the vague smudge of light above the tree canopy. My chest hurt. My knee throbbed in time with my pulse. My hands shook when I pushed myself up on my elbows. He was standing over me. He hadn't stepped into my field of vision. He was just there, as if I'd opened my eyes and he'd always been there. His face was closer now, maybe 3 feet away, staring down at me. The fog clung to him, swirled through him in a way that made my stomach turn. Drops of moisture beaded on his hair, ran down his jaw, disappeared somewhere in the shadow of his collar. From this distance, I could see more. His eyes weren't just wide. They were wrong. Too flat, too dark, with something cloudy moving just beneath the surface, like there was water in them. His skin had that swollen look, the kind you see in photos of bodies recovered from lakes, stretched smooth in some places, wrinkled in others. The smell of rot and cold metal was overpowering. My body refused to move. Every instinct screamed at me to kick, crawl, punch, anything, but I just lay there, pinned by his gaze. My fingers dug into the mud, nails filling with dirt. My breath came in short, high whimpers that embarrassed me even as I felt them leaving my chest. He slowly crouched, joints bending with an awful, deliberate slowness. His knees sank into the soft ground near my ribs. We were eye level now. His head tilted the other way, like he was studying me from a new angle. "Ryan," he whispered again, closer this time. The sound slid into my ear like cold water, made my skin crawl from the inside out. I could see his lips moving, pale and cracked, but the voice felt like it wasn't fully coming from his mouth, like some of it was arriving from behind my head. He reached out. His hand hovered over my chest, over my heart. The air underneath his fingers felt colder, like he was pulling heat out of me without touching me. My vision blurred at the edges. I couldn't tell if it was tears or something else. I don't remember deciding to move. 1 second, I was frozen. The next, I was shoving myself sideways, body screaming in protest. His fingers brushed my shirt. Just the fabric, not my skin. But it felt like ice burned through me in a straight line, a shock that made my muscles spasm. I scrambled, half crawling, half dragging myself through the undergrowth. Branches clawed at my face. My injured knee tried to buckle. I forced it to hold. Behind me, the branches started snapping again. Snap, snap, snap. Not closer, not farther, just following. At some point, through sheer luck or desperation, I stumbled back onto the main trail. The packed dirt under my hands felt like solid ground after an ocean. I pushed myself upright and ran limping, every step like a knife in my leg. The fog began to thin. I saw the thin line of the fence that separated the trail from my neighborhood, the familiar silhouette of my back gate, the outline of roofs beyond it, normal life waiting just a few yards away. I didn't look back. I crashed through the gate, slammed it behind me so hard it rattled, and staggered onto my lawn. The sudden shift from mud to grass made me stumble. I went down on my knees, panting, clutching at the cold blades with muddy hands. My wife opened the back door a minute later, hair messy, eyes wide with confusion and anger and something else when she saw my face. "Ryan? What the hell? Are you bleeding?" I didn't answer, couldn't. The words were stuck behind the image of that smile. Those eyes, the way he'd said my name like he'd been practicing. The police came later, after she forced it out of me in pieces. They searched the woods, walked the trail, shone flashlights into the trees. They came back with mud on their boots and nothing to show for it. "No footprints matching what you described," one of them said. "Could have been someone passing through. Maybe a transient. Maybe you got turned around in the fog and scared yourself. It happens." I nodded like I believed them. I didn't. My knee needed a brace for a few weeks. I quit running in the mornings. I told people it was the injury. They believed that. What I don't tell them is this. Sometimes, early on foggy mornings, before the sun is fully up and the houses are just rectangles in the gray, I wake up with my heart already racing. I lie there in bed, holding my breath, listening. Through the double-pane windows, through the walls, through the years, I hear it. Snap, snap, snap. Branches breaking in a rhythm that matches a runner's pace. And underneath it, faint but unmistakable, a voice like water in my ear, dragging my name up from somewhere deep and cold. Ryan. I don't go to the back gate anymore. I don't look toward the tree line. I keep my runs where there are witnesses and cameras and too much concrete for anything to grow. But the woods are still there. The fog still comes. And I know, deep down, in the part of me that still feels his hand hovering over my heart, that if I stepped back onto that trail at dawn, he'd be waiting, barefoot, smiling. He followed me out once. He can do it again. My name is Alex. I'm 29 now, and I will not live in any building that has a basement. People laugh when I say that. They think I'm being dramatic or making some joke about horror movies. I let them laugh. It's easier than explaining that when I hear certain sounds in tight spaces, a low drag, a breath that doesn't match my own, my body remembers something my brain still tries to deny. This happened when I was 21 during my junior year. I was renting a cheap room in a shared house off campus. Old place, peeling paint, crooked porch, that permanent smell of stale food and carpet cleaner. 4 of us shared it, me, 2 guys from my major, and a girl who was almost never home. The basement came with the place. We didn't use it for anything except laundry. The first time I saw it, the landlord flicked on this bare bulb at the top of the stairs and said, "Washer and dryer are down there. Don't overload the dryer. It trips the breaker." Then he moved on like the rest of it wasn't worth mentioning. The stairs were steep and narrow, the kind that make you feel like if you slip once you're going all the way down on your face. The basement itself was just one big room, low ceiling, exposed beams, concrete floor with old paint flaking off in patches. The washer and dryer sat against one wall, old white cubes humming and rattling, metal hoses snaking into the dark. Pipes ran overhead, sweating condensation. The light from that one bulb didn't really reach the far corners. They just stayed in this permanent gray, like shadows that never completely clear. The smell down there always hit first. Mildew, cold concrete, old dust, a hint of detergent and burnt lint from the dryer. Underneath all that, there was something else, something I couldn't name at the time, like damp wood and cold metal, the smell of somewhere you shouldn't linger. I told myself it was normal. Old houses are weird. Basements are weird. Everyone knows that. So I used it when I had to. I'd run down, shove my clothes in, start the machine, and get back upstairs as fast as I could. I never went down at night. That was just a rule I made for myself without really thinking about it. If I'd kept that rule, I wouldn't be telling you this. There were small things before that night. I see them clearly now. Back then, I shrugged them off. Once, I went down to switch my laundry and found the dryer door hanging open, my clothes cold and half dry. I could have sworn I'd closed it. The latch was stiff. You had to push hard until it clicked. I told myself I'd been distracted. Maybe a roommate had come down and checked their stuff and left it. Another time, the light flickered when I was halfway to the bottom. Not a little flutter, it snapped off for a full second. The basement swallowed me whole, and then flicked back on with a hum. In that 1 second of dark, I had this awful, instinctive certainty that I wasn't alone down there. Felt like the air moved, like something had stepped closer. I laughed it off, told myself it was wiring. Old houses, old problems. But every time I started down those stairs, my body tensed before my brain had time to make excuses. My shoulders would hunch, my feet would speed up, and that stupid, animal part of my mind would whisper, "Don't look at the far corner, don't look at the dark." If I had listened to that instead of my pride, I would have just gone to the campus laundromat like everyone else. The night it happened, it was raining. Not the soft, cozy kind of rain. It was that hard, steady downpour that makes the whole world feel soggy. The windows were fogged up. You could hear water rushing through the gutters like someone running their hands along the roof. I had been walking back from the library when a car hit a puddle near the curb and sent a wave of filthy water up my side. Soaked me from hip to shoulder. My favorite hoodie, the one I wore pretty much every day, was dripping. By the time I got home, the rain had gotten colder. The house felt extra damp. My hoodie clung to me, heavy and freezing. I stripped it off and decided I couldn't just hang it up. It would smell like wet dog by morning. I needed the dryer. I checked the time. A little after 9 p.m. I actually thought I don't go down there at night. Then I thought about putting that cold, wet hoodie back on in the morning. Thought about lectures in over-air-conditioned classrooms. Thought about how ridiculous it was that a grown man was nervous about a basement. "I'm fine," I muttered to myself. "I'll just be quick." That was the first sign something was wrong. The way I had to talk myself into it, like I was stepping onto a stage instead of just doing laundry. The upstairs lights felt warm and yellow. Safe. When I opened the basement door, it was like opening a fridge. The cold slid up the stairs in a slow wave, wrapping around my ankles and creeping under my jeans. The bulb at the top clicked on with its usual struggle. I stood there for a second, looking down at the narrow steps disappearing into that dim, humming space. The sound of the rain against the house was muffled down there, replaced by the distant rumble of the furnace and the occasional tick from the pipes. I stood up, drawn to the window by something between morbid curiosity and dread. The curtains were half open. The streetlight painted a halo on the pavement below, catching dust in the air. Empty road, closed shop fronts, a stray cat darting into the alley. "Where are you?" Zara asked, voice shaking. The answer came from the phone and the world at the same time. Not words, a sound, a slight shuffle, a soft exhale. "Check the window," the voice whispered. Except this time I was sure I heard it twice. Once in the room, once through the speaker. My skin iced over. Hands suddenly too clumsy. I gripped the curtain and pulled it back fully. She was standing directly under the streetlight. For a second, my brain refused to register her as a person. She could have been a shadow or a trick of the light, the way she stood so still. Slim figure in a pale top, bare arms, hair hanging forward like a curtain, obscuring her face completely. Her head was tilted slightly, as if listening. She was holding a phone to her ear. Every instinct in me screamed to step back, to drop the curtain, to make her disappear. Instead, I pressed closer to the glass, my breath fogging a small circle. "She's there," I whispered. "Zara, she's actually there." Zara joined me at the window, phone still pressed to her ear. Her hand brushed mine. She was freezing. The girl under the streetlight didn't move. The pool of yellow around her made her look almost flat, like a cutout from a photograph. Beyond the light, the night was thick and black. "Who are you?" Zara said, louder now, as if she needed the strength of her voice to keep the fear from swallowing her. "What do you want?" For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then the voice came again, crackling slightly with static. "You never answered," it said. "I've been calling. I miss you. I don't know you," Zara said, tears starting to gather in her eyes. "You have the wrong person." On the street, the girl tilted her head a little more, like a dog hearing a distant whistle. Slowly, she raised the phone away from her ear and held it out in front of her. Even from that distance, I saw the glow of the screen. It was the same as the one Zara was holding. Same layout, same icon, the same number displayed on it. Zara's number. My stomach dropped. The girl's free hand lifted and brushed her hair aside, just enough for me to glimpse the side of her face. Her skin looked wrong, not in a monstrous way, just too pale, too flat under the streetlight, like a face seen through frosted glass. Her cheek was wet. Her eyes, the little I could see of them, were fixed on our window. On us. "She can see us," I whispered. As if in response, the girl smiled. It was slow, a curve that didn't reach her eyes. The phone against Zara's ear crackled again. The voice that came through this time was softer, almost affectionate. "I'm coming up," it said. At the same instant, we heard something from inside the building. A door downstairs, opening, closing, footsteps on the stairwell. Not hurried, not dragging, just steady. One step, then another. The sound carried up through the floor, dull thuds that vibrated in my ankles. "She's messing with us?" I said, backing away from the window. "It's a prank. It has to be. Someone from your contacts, playing with a spoof app." Zara shook her head numbly. "I changed my number last week," she whispered. "After the first night. I didn't tell anyone but you." The footsteps reached the first landing. Our landing. Zara dropped the phone like it had burned her. It bounced off the mattress and landed face down, the voice still leaking out, muffled by the fabric. "Don't open it," I said. My own voice sounded distant in my ears. "Whatever happens, we don't open the door." We moved to the bedroom door together, drawn to it like people drawn to the edge of a cliff. The thin wood looked suddenly insubstantial. There was just the narrow hallway between us and the apartment entrance. We heard her reach it, the soft scuff of feet stopping, the pause, then knock. It was gentle. 3 light taps, polite, almost shy. My lungs forgot how to work. No one sensible knocks like that at 2:17 a.m. Zara clapped a hand over her mouth, stifling a sob. We stood there, frozen, staring at the bedroom door as if we could see through it. The phone on the bed hissed and crackled. The voice came again, clearer now that the distance between the caller and us had vanished. "Why aren't you opening?" it asked, genuinely confused. "You said you missed me too." "I never said that," Zara choked out, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I never." The voice giggled. The sound was wrong, off-key, like something that had learned laughter by imitating recordings. "Yes, you did," it said. "You kept saying you were lonely. You didn't want to sleep alone." I listened. Every night. The knock came again, harder this time, a little less polite. The walls seemed to lean inward with the sound. "Please go away," I whispered, not sure if I was talking to the door or the phone. Silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. No more knocking, no more footsteps. Then softly, by my ear, I heard breathing. Not through the door, not through the phone. Right behind me, cold air brushed the skin at the back of my neck, damp and sour, like someone who'd been outside in the cold too long. My body locked up. I didn't turn, couldn't. Felt like my head was nailed in place. "There you are," the voice whispered, now so close it buzzed in my teeth. "I knew you were with her." The lights flickered, just once. When they came back, the room looked the same, but something had changed. The air felt heavier. My chest hurt with every breath. The phone stopped crackling. The call had ended. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. We stayed on the floor, backs pressed against the wall opposite the bedroom door, watching it like it might start to bend inward. No more knocking came. No footsteps retreated down the stairs. At some point, light began to seep around the edges of the curtains, gray and thin. When we finally found the courage to open the apartment door, the hallway was empty. No one on the stairs. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there at all. The street outside was normal again. Cars, people, streetlight clicking off with a faint metallic sound. For a few weeks, the calls stopped. Zara moved back in with her parents temporarily. She left most of her stuff in that flat like she was afraid to go back long enough to pack properly. We pretended life was normal. We went to work. We scrolled through memes. We didn't talk about 217. Then, one night, my own phone rang. The sound dragged me up out of sleep with a jolt. I grabbed it off the bedside table, squinting at the screen. 2:17 a.m. Incoming call. Caller ID, my own number. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. Then my heart dropped somewhere below my ribs. My hand shook as I answered. The static was immediately familiar. So was the crying. "Zara?" I whispered, though I knew it wasn't her. The sobbing hiccuped, then grew quieter. I could hear breathing. Then softly, "I miss you." I sat up, the room spinning around me. "What do you want?" I demanded, though my voice barely rose above a whisper. The answer was the same as always, in the same young, rasping tone. "I'm right outside." I knew better than to check. I did it anyway. I pulled back the curtain with fingers that barely obeyed me. Under the streetlight in front of my parents' house, a girl stood with her hair over her face, still as a photo, holding a glowing phone up to her ear. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Zara stopped replying to my messages a month ago. People say she's taking a break from everything. Her family says she's fine, just resting. Her number is always switched off now. When I ask if anyone has seen her, I get the kind of tight smiles people use when they don't want to talk. The calls to me don't come every night. Sometimes weeks pass with nothing, and I start to believe it's over. Then 2:17 rolls around, and my phone buzzes with a call from myself. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. It doesn't seem to matter, because more and more lately, I feel it on buses, in empty streets, in my own hallway when I come home late. The sense of eyes on my back, of a presence just outside my field of vision, of someone walking a half step behind me, never close enough to see if I turn suddenly, but always there, waiting for the night I'm too tired to resist, the night I decide to open the door. My name is Daniel. I'm 32 now, and I drive with my mirrors tilted just a little too far down. Not because I'm bad at changing lanes. I'm trying not to see her face again. Back then I was 25, living in a town nobody cares about unless they need gas or cigarettes on the way to somewhere better. I was working nights as a courier for a pharmacy chain, prescription runs, emergency meds, little sealed boxes that suddenly became the most important thing in the world to someone waiting in a quiet house. The job sounded honorable on paper. Mostly it was just me and a rattling compact car, a crumpled stack of delivery receipts, and miles of back roads that all looked the same at 2 a.m. I told myself I liked it. No customers. No bosses breathing down my neck. Just the road. Really, I was hiding. From family drama, from debt, from the fact that my life felt like it had stalled out in neutral. If I kept moving, I didn't have to think about it. That night was at the tail end of a long week. It was late fall, cold enough that your breath hung in the air, but not cold enough to turn the rain into snow. It had been pouring on and off all day. One of those gray, endless rains that make everything smell like wet asphalt and dead leaves. By midnight, the town was behind me. I'd finished the last city stop and taken a call from dispatch. One more delivery, a rush order to a farmhouse out past the county line. I almost said no. I was exhausted. My eyes burned. My hands smelled like coffee and steering wheel. But I needed the hours. I always needed the hours. If I had known what was coming, I guess that's the part where I'm supposed to say I'd have turned around. But the truth is, back then I probably still would have gone. Money does that to you. The highway thinned out to nothing. Streetlights disappeared. It was just my headlights cutting a narrow tunnel through the dark. 2 weak cones of light on soaked blacktop, framed by fields and a broken guardrail here and there. My wipers thumped a steady rhythm, smearing rainwater and bug streaks. The radio hissed low, some late-night talk show fading in and out. My brain drifted bills, rent, what I'd eat when I finally got home. I kept checking the clock, doing that tired math. That's when I saw her. At first, she was just a shape in the distance, a darker spot at the side of the road, standing in the thin gravel shoulder. My foot eased off the gas automatically. It's a country thing. You see something on the road, you slow down. As I got closer, the shape turned into a person. A girl. Maybe my age, maybe younger. Long dark hair hanging straight down, plastered against her back. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Head tilted down just enough that I couldn't see her face clearly. She was standing too close to the white line. The rain had been coming down hard for hours, and it still misted in the air. My high beams picked up a fine spray floating past, little droplets catching the light and then vanishing into the dark. Her clothes should have been soaked. They weren't. Jeans. Long sleeve top. All dry. No shine. No cling. No dark patches. Just dry. My fingers tightened on the wheel. I almost didn't stop. I told myself the usual things. Don't pick up strangers. People are messed up. You're on the clock. Keep going. Then my brain did that other thing. What if that was your sister? Standing out here in the middle of nowhere, in the cold, while cars just blew past her. By the time I'd finished the argument in my head, I'd already braked and rolled to a crawl. I pulled up beside her, engine rumbling softly. The rain pattered against the windshield, streaking the glass. For a moment we were side by side in this small bubble of light. She didn't look up. I leaned across the passenger seat and popped the door open a few inches. Cold air rushed in, along with that wet smell. Rain, mud, something metallic underneath from the road. Goosebumps ran up my arms. You okay? I called over the sound of the rain. You need a ride somewhere? It's pretty bad out. Slowly, she lifted her head. Her face was pale. Not the soft pale of someone who just doesn't see much sun. The flat, too even white of someone who's been very sick or very cold for a very long time. Her expression was nothing. Not scared, not grateful, not angry. Just blank. Her eyes were dark, wide, framed by wet-looking lashes. In my headlights, they should have caught some reflection. Everyone's eyes do. There's always that little pinprick somewhere. Hers were just dark. Yeah, she said, barely above a whisper. Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like I was hearing it through a wall. Ahead. Ahead where? Ahead how far? Ahead to what? I opened my mouth to ask, then shut it again. Something about the way she stood there, shoulders slack, backpack hanging off one arm, made the questions feel wrong in my mouth. Okay, I said instead. Hop in. It's freezing out there. She climbed in slowly, like each movement was too deliberate. The backpack settled at her feet with a dull thump I barely heard over the rain. The smell in the car changed immediately. The world outside smelled like wet dirt and exhaust. Inside, it was suddenly colder, the air taking on a damp old scent, like the inside of a shut-up room that hasn't seen air in years. There was a faint hint of something else too, underneath it all. Rot? Metal? Couldn't place it. I put the car in drive. The moment we started moving, the temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees. The heater was on. I could see the little orange light. I could feel the fan on my hands. But the air itself stayed cold, a clammy sort of cold that settled in my bones, cleared my throat. So, where you headed? She didn't answer. She just lifted one hand, long fingers pale and thin, and pointed straight ahead. Not to a turnoff, not to a landmark, just ahead. Into the dark road my headlights were eating in small bites. Something in my chest tightened. Instinct, maybe. That animal part of your brain that never really modernizes with the rest of you. Go, Miss Sarah said, packing her books. Class is over. Miss, please give her back now, Aisha said. Please. She doesn't like being alone. You'll get it tomorrow, Miss Sarah said. I'm keeping it in here tonight. Maybe then you'll understand that toys do not belong in this classroom. Something in the way she said tonight made the hairs on my arms rise. Keeping it here, in the empty room, in the dark. Miss, she doesn't like. Enough, Miss Sarah said, losing patience. If you continue this, I will be speaking to your parents about your behavior. Go home. Aisha's lips trembled. For a moment, I thought she would refuse. Then something in her just caved. She stood, lifted her empty backpack, limp, shapeless without the doll inside, and walked out without another word. As I left, I glanced back one last time. The drawer was closed, but the faintest sliver of pale fabric was caught where the wood met metal, like something inside hadn't been fully pushed down. That night it rained. The power cut out in our block twice. My room glowed with my phone screen as I scrolled through memes, trying not to think about the doll locked in that desk in that dark classroom. I told myself it was ridiculous. Porcelain and cloth. Nothing more. Still, before I fell asleep, I imagined the school building with all its lights off, the echoing corridors, the creak of water in the pipes. I imagined our classroom door, the desks like rows of shadows. I imagined the sound of something shifting inside a wooden drawer. The next morning, the rain had washed the air clean. The sky was pale and empty. As I walked up the school steps, kids clustered in groups, whispering in that tight, excited way that only comes when something has happened. Our classroom door was open. Miss Sarah wasn't there. Instead, the headmistress stood at the front, lips pressed thin, hands folded. Behind her, I saw the desk. It looked wrong. Papers were everywhere. Shredded. Not torn in half or crumpled, shredded. Long, thin strips like someone had dragged claws through stacks of worksheets. The wall mirror near the door, the one Miss Sarah used to check her lipstick, was cracked in a spiderweb pattern, radiating out from one point near the center. The shards still clung to the frame, but the face it would reflect now would be in pieces. On the bed in the small attached staff room, we could see it through the half-open door. Something pale sat neatly on the rumpled sheets. The doll. Her head was tilted slightly to one side. The crack through her eye seemed deeper, the blue glass iris catching the light in a way that made it look wet. A murmur rippled through the class. Silence, the headmistress snapped. Miss Sarah is unwell. She will not be coming in today. What happened? Someone asked from the back. That is not your concern, the headmistress said, too quickly. Sit. We will be arranging a substitute teacher. My eyes moved to the desk. The top drawer hung slightly open. Slowly, like someone underwater, I walked closer. The shredded papers scratched under my shoes. Ink smudged against my sole. Inside the drawer, the wood was gouged. Thin, jagged lines crisscrossed the bottom and sides. Deep in some places, shallow in others. Not straight like from a knife. Curved, repeated. The marks clustered toward the front, where the lock was, like something had tried over and over to reach the gap. I swallowed hard, throat dry. Behind me, someone giggled nervously. Aisha did this for revenge, I bet. We looked for her. She wasn't there. Where's Aisha? I asked the headmistress when I found a moment. She hesitated. For a fraction of a second, something like fear flickered in her eyes. Then it was gone. She will not be joining you today either, she said. Go back to your seat, Ali. No one saw Aisha again after that. Her name was never mentioned in assembly. Nobody announced that she'd transferred or moved. It was like she'd been erased from the class list, leaving only her empty chair and the memory of that limp backpack. The doll disappeared too. One day it was sitting on the staff room bed. The next it was gone. When I asked a cleaner about it, she crossed herself and muttered something about throwing it away. But her eyes darted toward the classroom like she didn't fully believe it. For a while, things went back to normal. New teacher, new homework, new gossip. Then small things started happening. First, it was tiny. My pencil case would be unzipped when I was sure I'd closed it. My eraser would be on the floor, not where I'd left it. Once, I opened my bag and found my notebooks out of order, carefully rearranged, like someone had gone through them with interest. I blamed my friends, pranks, boredom. Then I started hearing it. A faint, almost too soft scratch from inside my backpack during class, like something small and hard shifting against a zipper. Whenever I opened it, everything looked normal. One afternoon, as the substitute droned on about grammar, I felt a weight in my bag that shouldn't have been there. Heavy, solid, resting against my foot where the bag touched the floor. My heart began to pound. Slowly, I slid the bag into my lap and unzipped it. Books, pencil case, lunchbox, and, tucked neatly between my math book and my dictionary, something else. A tiny porcelain hand. Just the hand. No arm. No body. No doll. Fingers dirty, cracked at the wrist, as if snapped off something larger. For a second, the classroom around me blurred. The air smelled like old paper and something sweet and rotten, like flowers left too long in water. My skin crawled. I snapped the bag shut so fast my knuckles hurt. That night, I put the hand in a shoebox and buried it at the back of my cupboard under old clothes. My hands shook the whole time. The porcelain felt colder than it should have been. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. Sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and everyone else is asleep, I hear it. A soft, distinctive tap-tap from inside the cupboard. Not loud enough to wake anyone, just enough to let me know it's there. moving, waiting. Once, when I couldn't stand it anymore, I opened the cupboard and pulled out the shoebox. The lid was slightly askew. Inside, the porcelain hand had shifted. Before, I'd left it lying flat. Now, the fingers were curled in toward the palm, like it was in the middle of forming a fist, or reaching for something. I haven't told anyone. Who would I tell? Remember that girl with the doll? I think her toy left me a piece of itself. Sometimes I wonder where Aisha went, if she's still out there somewhere, carrying something much heavier than a doll. Sometimes I dream that I'm sitting in our old classroom, and when I look down, the hand is back in my bag. But this time it's bigger, the wrist smoother, like it's growing back up a missing arm. And sometimes, when I wake up in the dark, I swear I hear a faint, childish voice whisper from inside the cupboard, thin, muffled, like it's speaking through layers of fabric. She doesn't like being taken away, followed by a tiny, deliberate scratch against wood. My heart hammered against my ribs. No, I whispered, because it was the only word I could find. No, no, no. Out of the corner of my eye, something glistened on the dashboard. Wet, smudged. The shape was wrong at first, just streaks of darker moisture in the dim glow of the instruments. I leaned forward, breath fogging the inside of the windshield. There, clearer. Footprints. Not dirt, not mud. Just the wet outline, bare and unmistakable. Small, human. Toes and arches and heels imprinted in droplets across the plastic, as if someone had pressed both their bare feet up against the dash and slowly slid them down. My stomach lurched. I killed the engine without thinking. The sudden absence of the motor made the silence even louder. Only the rain on the roof, the tick of cooling metal, my own pulse hammering in my ears. I don't remember how long I sat there. Eventually, headlights appeared in the distance behind me, rounding the curve like a pair of approaching eyes. A horn blared short, angry. I jolted back into myself, started the car again with shaking hands, and pulled over to the shoulder to let the truck pass. The rest of the drive to the farmhouse is a blur. Some automatic part of me followed the GPS, made the turns, handed over the package to a tired man in a bathrobe who had no idea I just let something into my car. I didn't mention it to him. I didn't mention it to dispatch. I drove home with the radio off and the heater blasting, not because I was cold, but because I was trying to feel something normal again. The police never got involved. There was no crime, no accident, just a tired delivery driver who picked up a hitchhiker that nobody else saw. I quit the courier job a month later, told them it was the hours, told myself it was the pay. The truth is, I couldn't make myself drive those roads alone at night anymore. Every time the rain hit the windshield and the world outside narrowed to 2 cones of light, my chest clamped down. It's been years. I live in a different town now. Day job, office lights, traffic signals. The most dangerous thing about my commute is the occasional idiot on their phone. But some things don't change. I still see her sometimes. Not clearly, never fully, just in the edges. I'll be checking my blind spot in traffic, and for a split second the mirror will catch a pale oval where there shouldn't be one. A face without expression, hair hanging too straight, eyes that don't catch the light. Every time, my body goes cold before my brain catches up. Sometimes, on long drives with other people in the car, I'll notice something else. The way the sunlight hits the back seat. The way my friend's head casts a little shadow on the upholstery. The way their shoulder blocks a strip of light on the door. And then I'll glance at the empty space beside them, just long enough to make sure there's still nothing there. No extra outline, no missing shadow. If you ever find yourself out on some empty rural road late at night, rain coming down, no other cars for miles, and you see someone standing on the shoulder, backpack on, head down, you'll feel it, that little twist in your gut, that quiet voice that says, don't stop. Listen to it, because sometimes the people you pick up don't leave footprints where they should, and sometimes they leave them in places they never touched. I still see her face in my mirrors, pale, expressionless, waiting. My name is Eric. I'm 27 now, and I still sleep with my bedroom door open. People think that means I'm scared of the dark. I'm not. I'm scared of closed doors. More specifically, I'm scared of what stands on the other side of them. Waiting, patient, practicing the same rhythm over and over. 3 taps. Always 3. This started when I was 16 in the house I grew up in. It was one of those old 2-story places you can't really keep quiet no matter how much you fix. Wooden floors that clicked even under bare feet, pipes that groaned, a staircase that complained every time someone used it. The kind of house that sounds busy even when everyone's asleep. Except at night, everyone wasn't asleep. Not my parents. They both worked nights back then. My dad at a distribution warehouse, my mom on the night shift at a small hospital 2 towns over. Schedule-wise, it made sense. Money-wise, we needed it. Emotionally, it meant I was alone in the house a lot more than anyone realized. They'd leave around 9 p.m. and come back around 6 in the morning. I'd get a kiss on the forehead, a reminder to lock the doors, and then it was just me and the creaks and the ticking clock in the hallway. I told them I didn't mind. I told myself I was grown, 16, old enough to handle a few hours alone in a familiar house. I should have listened to the part of me that didn't believe that. It was early winter. I remember that because the air had that dry, cracked feeling, and the radiator made this constant hissing sound that faded into the background once you were used to it. The house always smelled like old wood, laundry soap, and whatever my mom had cooked earlier that evening. That night, she'd made stew. The kind that sits heavy in your stomach and makes you sleepy. The TV washed the living room in blue light, some crime show muttering in the background while I pretended to do homework and mostly scrolled on my phone. They left right on schedule. Door closing, engine starting, red taillights passing the front window, then disappearing. After that, it was just the hum of the fridge, the radiator, and the occasional car passing on the main road a block away. Around midnight, I went upstairs. My bedroom was at the end of the hall on the left. Bathroom halfway down on the right. My parents' room at the other end. The hallway light stayed off most nights. I knew the floor by heart. The only light bleeding in came from the small nightlight they'd plugged into the outlet near the stairs. Soft, yellow, barely enough to make out the edges of the picture frames on the walls. I shut my door, but not all the way, just until the latch almost caught. That's how I liked it then. Cracked enough that I didn't feel sealed in, but closed enough to make the room feel like mine. I could hear the house breathing through that gap, the low whisper of the radiator, the tick of the hallway clock, the distant hum from downstairs. I lay there scrolling until my eyes ached, then clicked the screen off. The darkness felt heavy but familiar. I rolled onto my side, facing the door, and let the sounds of the house pull me towards sleep. I don't know how long I'd been drifting when it happened. 3 taps. Soft, slow, calm. On my bedroom door. Not the radiator. Not the clock. Not the house settling. Knuckles on wood. That specific hollow, rounded sound. My eyes snapped open. For a second, I felt relieved. My parents must have come home early. Maybe a shift change. Maybe something happened at work. The thought of another person in the house, of not being alone, softened some of the tension in my chest. "Yeah," I called out, voice thick with sleep. "Come in." Silence. The door didn't move. No handle turning. No hinge creaking. I frowned, pushed the covers down, and swung my legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold under my feet, the wood grain pressing into my soles as I padded toward the door. The gap glowed with the faintest light from the hallway nightlight. I could see a sliver of the opposite wall. Nothing else. I wrapped my fingers around the knob and opened the door. The hallway was empty. No coat on the hook by the stairs. No keys in the bowl on the little table. No muffled voices from downstairs. Just the quiet tick of the clock and the distant hiss of the radiator. The air out there felt colder. Not just hallway is cooler than bedroom cold. It felt like someone had just walked through. A moving patch of chill lingering behind them. It brushed past my bare legs and arms like a draft from a door that had just closed. "Mom!" I called out. "Dad!" No answer. I checked the top of the stairs. From there I could see the front door. Still locked. I listened hard for any sound from the kitchen, the living room, the garage. Nothing but the house breathing. I told myself I'd imagine the knock. that it was the radiator, or the pipes, or the neighbors. I told myself 16-year-olds don't get scared by noises in their own homes. I went back to bed. I left the door open a little wider this time. 10 minutes later, I'd almost convinced myself to relax. My eyes were half closed, my thoughts smearing into dreams. I lay on my back, staring at the faint light strip where door met frame. 3 taps. Same rhythm. Same patience. Not loud. Not urgent. Just there. My heart lurched so hard it hurt. This time I didn't call out. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't pretend it was anything else. I shot out of bed and crossed the floor in 3 big steps. My hand closed around the knob, slick with sudden sweat. I yanked the door open fast, like ripping off a bandage. And I saw him. He was standing at the far end of the hallway, near my parents' bedroom door. Tall. Too tall, or maybe it just felt that way in the narrow hall. His shoulders were angled like they didn't fit properly into his body, one higher than the other, the line of them crooked, as if something inside was broken and never healed right. His head was tilted too far sideways, chin almost resting on his collarbone, like someone had taken it and turned it just a little too far and left it there. He was facing me. The night light near the stairs threw just enough glow to outline him. I couldn't see his features clearly, just the pale oval of a face and the dark hollows where his eyes should be. Those eyes, even from that distance, they felt wrong. Too wide, too still, like holes cut in a mask. We stared at each other, or I stared at him and he stared through me. The cold from the hallway surged into my room, crawling up my bare arms, tightening the skin at the back of my neck. I don't know how long I stood there. My brain kept trying to catch up, to slot this figure into something rational. A neighbor, a sleepwalker, a burglar, some kind of real-world danger I could call the police about. Nothing fit. I blinked. He was gone. Not faded. Not walked away. Gone. 1 second he was there, occupying space and casting a faint suggestion of a shadow. The next, there was just the blank end of the hallway. My parents' door closed, the wall clock ticking like nothing had changed. I stood there, knuckles white on the doorknob, lungs burning, without realizing I'd forgotten to breathe. Eventually I slammed the door. I locked it for the first time in my life. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in bed with my back against the headboard, lamp on, lights burning my eyes, staring at that door like it would burst inward any second. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every tick of the clock sounded louder. When my parents came home at dawn, I nearly knocked the lamp over rushing to unlock the door. I told them what I'd seen in this jumbled rush, man. Hallway, knocking, gone. They exchanged that look over my head. The "our kid is stressed" look. The nightmare hormones, too much TV look. Eric, it was probably the house, my dad said. You know how this place sounds. It sounded like a man, I insisted. My voice cracked on that last word. My mom put a hand on my arm. You've been staying up too late. Your mind plays tricks when you're tired. We'll be home early tonight. Okay? They meant well. They didn't believe me. The knocking came back the next night. Same time, same pattern. 3 soft taps on my bedroom door, like a polite visitor with endless patience. I tried ignoring it. I lay there stiff as a board, eyes squeezed shut, headphones on, volume up. Music pounded into my ears, but the knocks still cut through. I didn't hear them, I felt them. A faint vibration in the air, in the wood, in my chest. Tap, tap, tap. An hour later, when I finally turned off the music, my room felt colder. The air felt heavier, like someone was standing right outside the door, forehead resting against the wood, listening to me breathe. On the 3rd night, I snapped. The taps came 3 in a row, each one spaced just enough to stretch my nerves to breaking. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and yelled, "Stop it!" Silence. I stood there in the middle of my room, chest heaving, fists clenched. The lamp light painted everything in flat yellow. My posters, my desk, my half-open closet. No answer. Then, from the hallway, tap, tap, tap. Not on my door this time. On the wall, a little farther away. closer to the stairs. My skin went cold. The hairs on my arms stood up. "Mom!" I called even though I knew they weren't home. "Dad!" Tap, tap, tap. Farther down the hall now, near the bathroom. The clock in the hall ticked between each knock, steady and indifferent. Tap, tap, tap. Right outside my door again. I backed away until the edge of my bed hit the back of my knees. "Go away," I whispered. That was all I could manage. "Please." Something slid slowly down the other side of the door. Not fingernails, not scratching, just this soft, long drag, like a palm or a sleeve or a cheek being pressed along the wood inch by inch. My eyes filled with tears. For a second, the urge to fling the door open almost outweighed the terror. To face it, to prove it was nothing or finally see what it was. But something deeper, older, said, "If you open it now, he'll be closer. He's been waiting for that." So I didn't. He kept knocking every night for a week. Always 3 taps. Always when the house had settled into that deep, late silence. Always when I was starting to drift toward sleep. Sometimes he'd stay by my door. Sometimes I could hear the knocks move down the hallway, to my parents' room, to the top of the stairs, to the far wall where we kept family photos. I started sleeping with every light on. I stopped sleeping much at all. My grades dropped. I got pale. My friends noticed. My parents chalked it up to stress. No one heard the knocking but me. Then one night it stopped. I lay there waiting, blankets around my shoulders, lamp humming. Midnight passed. 1, 2, no taps. The silence was almost worse. I kept jerking awake from the edge of sleep. Sure I'd missed it. Sure he'd knocked and I hadn't answered and now he was inside the room. But nothing came. The next night, nothing. The night after that, still nothing. Slowly, I started sleeping again. Not well, not deeply, but enough. I stopped telling myself it hadn't happened. I knew it had, but I told myself it was over. I moved out of that house 2 years later for college. My parents sold it a few years after that, downsizing to a smaller place. New neighborhood. New walls. No long hallway. I tell myself I left him there. In that hallway. Behind that door. The problem is, I don't think he stayed. Because sometimes, even now, in my small apartment with no creaking staircase and no ticking hallway clock, I'll be lying in bed, door open to the dim light of the living room, and the world will get very, very quiet. No traffic. No neighbors. Just my breathing. And from somewhere, through a wall, through the floor, through whatever thin materials we pretend keep us safe, I'll hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, slow, calm. I freeze every time. My throat goes dry. My palms sweat. And I stare at that open doorway like something is about to step through it. Nothing ever does. But I feel him there. Not right outside the door anymore. Farther away. Another hallway. Another house. Another kid who thinks they're alone. He's patient. He can wait. I still sleep with my bedroom door open. Closed doors make me think about the space just behind them. About tall men with broken shoulders and heads tilted too far, and eyes that never blink. If you ever wake up to 3 soft taps on your door in the middle of the night, slow, calm, like someone who isn't in any hurry, don't do what I did. Don't open it. Because once you see him at the end of the hall, you'll never really be alone in your house again. And he never stops knocking.